right, so welcome everybody. It's been a while to meet like this for a topical coaching webinar with Noble Manhattan. My name is Katrin Prentice. I'm an accredited master coach with the International Authority of Professional Coaching and Mentoring, and I'm also one of the trainers, mentors, final assessors, and member of the Coaching Compliance Board at Noble Manhattan. So I'm very happy to welcome you at this webinar. We're going to talk about an interesting topic, ethics, which touches every aspect of our life as coaches, but not just coaches, but actually decent human beings. Ethical behavior is always at the core of every good relationship, interaction, and a good, healthy quality of life. So it has far-reaching effects. We're not going to talk about all of these aspects. We're just going to focus on certain ethical key moments that define our profession as a profession, separates us. Well, I'm not sure if separate is the right word, but definitely identifies us as a profession, and I hope this is helpful for you. Now, this webinar is influenced by the ethics module of Noble Manhattan Coaching. Now, some of you are familiar with it, some of you aren't, since I am part of the faculty at Noble Manhattan Coaching. I'm referring to it, but we will expand it and we'll go beyond. But I need to start by clarifying something, that the aim of this webinar is not necessarily to give currently a list of specific do's and don'ts, although we will touch on some. It's not to provide you with like written laws. It's more about encouraging you and stimulating you to seek higher professional standards by which to practice at the highest possible levels of ethics and integrity and accountability and responsibility. And this is part of the vision at Noble Manhattan Coaching. Actually, the ethics module is the longest module in the entire course of 12 modules. Why is it the longest? Well, like I said, it's a very, very deep subject. It touches on everything that has to do with coaching, with our profession, but also as just living as decent humans. So, and because Noble Manhattan Coaching is one of the longest established existing companies that provides coach training, not just in Europe, but globally, and therefore being some of the forerunners of the coaching profession, leaders in the coaching, in the field of coach training, we do have a very regarding high value, the goal of creating magnificent coaches with the highest standards of professionalism and ethics and ethical behavior. That is one of the reasons also why while we train our specific coaches that have trusted us with training with us, we actually mentioned the coaching criteria and ethical codes, not just of one, not just of two, but of three different accreditation bodies, international accreditation bodies. In a moment, I will give you more details about that. So this module on ethics sets standards by which all coaches can and should operate with the highest levels of ethics, integrity, accountability, and responsibility. Now, what are we going to cover today? We'll start with the basics. What is coaching? What it is not? What is ethics in coaching? What are the do's and don'ts of two of the leading coach training organizations, ICF and IIPCNM? Now, mind you, both organizations have very long documents that cover the core ethical and professional standards and values of these organizations. So, for the sake of brevity and the limitation of this webinar, I will not be able to go into detail of every jot and tittle of the coaching standards of both organizations, but I will give you the links where you can study them in more in depth. Now, however, I would like to cover those points that overlap. Why? Sometimes people say, oh, who are you accredited with? And oh, where are you accredited with? And accreditation is very important. But what I would like to emphasize with this presentation is that coaching is coaching. The coaching profession is a coaching profession. And it's not like you're going to go to one accreditation body and they're going to allow you to get away with some things that another accreditation body is not going to let you get away with. You know, it's not like that. Actually, there's so much that unites us as a coaching profession, regardless of whether you have been accredited here, there, or somewhere else. As long as you have studied with a reputable organization and you have applied to one of the leading accreditation bodies, most probably, you will have been trained and also accredited according to these standards that make coaching coaching. And then we'll cover briefly what we should tell our clients when we create our agreements with them, like what we should include in these agreements. And we'll go back to how Noble Manhattan teaches on some of these ethical questions. So now, what is coaching and what it is not? So we'll cover 4 basic tenets of coaching, which actually say what coaching is not, but it ultimately leads to the point of what coaching is. So let's begin from the basics. And the reason I'm covering this is not because I don't think anybody else here maybe believes these things or knows them, but it's interesting for me how in some recent conversations I have had with particularly corporate clients, and they ask me these questions of, well, what type of coaching do you do? Or comments like, oh, I do coaching all the time. I coach all of my coworkers and employees. Sometimes they don't even know that I'm coaching them. You know, I'm so good at applying coaching principles. Or sometimes I hear things saying that, well, we need help with such and such a person, but I want to tell him what to do and I don't want to get involved with it. And when I explain what coaching is, then I get the answer like, oh, but that's not the kind of coaching we want. As if like there is like acceptable types of coaching or unacceptable types of coaching. So when we talk about coaching, we have to be clear what it is and how it differs from all the other helping professions, such as management skills, for example, or consulting or therapy or training or mentoring, that are all very useful in dealing with people. So here are the 4 core things about coaching. Oh yeah, so sometimes I have answered these kind of questions that I have just told you about, and I say, well, are you sure that you're actually coaching in your organization, or you're coaching your clients, or you're doing something else? So I guess that's a good question for all of us to evaluate. So what coaching is not? Well, coaching is not management. Sometimes what people need in an organization is actually down-to-earth management. Somebody needs to get involved with an employee and do some good management. And maybe the manager needs a coach on how to fulfill their management responsibilities. And it shouldn't be confused when somebody needs training, an employee, or somebody needs feedback or being handled by a manager, and somebody that needs actually coaching. So coaching is not mentoring, coaching is not therapy, and coaching is not consulting. So here are the 4 pillars of coaching. Coaching is non-judgmental, meaning we don't judge, we don't evaluate, we show acceptance, respect towards a client's beliefs and limits and values and views and vision, abilities. We're non-directional. That means we don't tell them, you should do, you must do, you have to do this, or give specific guidance on how to accomplish certain thing. And we also don't necessarily point to the answer directly. Although coaching is a process which leads to greater awareness through which a client finds the answers that are relevant to him or her at that moment. But the answer doesn't come from us. It comes from the coaching alliance that we make with our client. And that is where the source of their aha moment and way forward comes from. And also, look to that, listen to this. Coaching is focused on the client's agenda. I have seen some of the questions that you have posted when registering for the webinar, and some of them, yes, some of them will answer in the process of the webinar. Some of them I'll answer probably at the end. And if I don't answer some of yours, just raise it up and share the question. But here is a good point to consider. Some of these questions, I challenge some of these questions as to whether we're talking about really protecting the client's agenda, identifying who really is the client of the coaching relationship, and what are we seeking through this coaching? Like, are we seeking somebody else's agenda while meeting and having a conversation with somebody we call a client? And this is, again, pertaining more about those situations when we apply coaching in a corporate environment. When it's one-to-one individual coaching, which we generally would call life coaching, those lines are a lot more defined. But when we go into the corporate arena, very often some of these lines blur a lot more easily. And there is multiple players whose agendas come to the fore, and sometimes they may, of course, they may not, but they may clash. So coaching is based on trust. Coaching is a coactive partnership. Coaching is focused entirely on the benefit of the client. One of the coaching fundamentals is confidentiality and obviously ethics. So when we train coaches, NMC actively promotes non-directional coaching, which means that as coaches, we don't tell, we don't advise, we don't suggest what our clients should do, but through questioning and through listening, we aim to raise the client's awareness, and we aim to draw out from them the solutions that lie within them and pertain to their situation. All right, and here we come to the definition of coaching written by Gerard Donovan, the founder and CEO of No Manhattan Coaching. So in one sentence, coaching is about performing at your best through the individual and private assistance of someone who will challenge, stimulate, and guide you to keep growing. So this definition is written from the perspective of the client. So when we engage clients, it's good for them to understand what they're going to be engaging in. So it's a process where they will be performing better or at their best through an intervention from us as coaches. And our role there will be to challenge, to raise their awareness, so that they can keep growing and finding the answers that are important for them. Yes. All right. Now, before I show the next slide, when we talk about coaching ethics, like in the beginning, I said that we are going to cover two of the basically we'll focus more on two of the leading coaching organizations, coach accreditation bodies, excuse me, in the world. But I want to start by identifying that and underlying that when we talk about coaching accreditation and standards and ethics, there are multiple bodies around the globe that are engaged in ensuring that coaching as a profession unanimously sticks to very high standards of behavior, both ethical and professional. And here are some of them. Now, each of these organizations has different, how shall I call it, maybe areas of influence. Some are more popular in some parts of the world, some are more popular in other parts of the world. Some have better marketing, some have better presence, some have bigger influence. But what I want to emphasize is that it's not just one body of accreditation that is the utmost and the only say-so in the world. So as you can see, we have the International Authority of Professional Coaching and Mentoring, the International Coach Federation, the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, the Association of Coaching, Worldwide Association of Business Coaching, Center of Credentialing and Education, Asia Pacific Alliance of Coaches, International Coaching Council, International, okay, well, this is about NLP, but anyway, I put it in there. So, but you know what the beautiful thing about it is? If you take the moment to actually study the coaching ethics, study the fundamentals, you will find out they all boil to one thing. And that thing is that you put the good of the client above everything. That is the heart of the ethics of coaching. That the client comes first. And it's beautiful, really. And it's kind of liberating, actually. And a good coach training organization will teach you how to achieve this. Well, like I said, Norman Hatton has, this is the longest module of training. And yes, these 30 minutes of webinar are not going to cover the entire book. It's literally a book. It can be published as a standalone book. So let's move on. So what is actually ethics? Like I said, it all boils down to caring for the benefit of the client first and foremost. The ethics in coaching is like our North Star. It shows us where, it shows us direction, gives us an understanding of the landscape, helps us take a safe course, take our relationship with our client on a safe course. But safe for who? Safe for him, for the client. It is the combination of the rules of the road, the ethics and values all put together that chart the best path for our client. So here is a definition of coaching, a definition of ethics. I Googled it. So this is the first definition that came out, but it's sufficient in my opinion. So the noun ethic means a set of principles of right conduct, a theory or a system of moral values, as the study of the general nature of morals and of the special moral choices to be made by a person. It's the moral philosophy. So when we talk about ethics in coaching, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the system of moral values that govern, that provide the North Star for us as coaches. Okay, somebody wrote me something. Oh, thank you for the reaction, Michael. Good. So, and I'm harping on this because it's very important for us to understand that no matter where we have trained, and that no matter where ultimately we get our specific accreditation status, sometimes it's just really a matter of status. You know, master coach, like I said, I'm an accredited master coach, but what it means, I mean, it doesn't mean anything until you actually get to know me and work with me, right? Once I start practicing coaching with you, then you understand what it really means. So one is getting status in the world of coaching, perhaps for marketing or business purposes. But ethics is so much bigger than that. It goes beyond. It's part of the universal laws that govern our relationships. All right. So yes, I love this statement. Well, I have learned it from Gerard, so I should give credit where credit is due. But I love this. Coaching is mad. Yeah, it makes a difference. That's why it's mad. But isn't it amazing? It's an exciting profession. We make a difference. We can take a clients on a journey in a universe of discovery. And they will be safe there. And they'll discover worlds they haven't even imagined. They will overcome limiting beliefs. They will create vision and set new goals that inspire them rather than stifle them. So, like I said, these are universal laws that all boil down to caring for the client. And you have all heard about the golden rule, right? What does it say? I showed you but ignore it. Pretend that you haven't seen the next slide. So what is the golden rule? It's been quoted very often. You can just blur out. I'll be happy if somebody gets the courage. Oh yeah, while you're getting the courage to say it, I have to say that, or you can write it. Yes, you can write it. But it's something about coaching is courageous. Coaching costs. Being an ethical coach and a effective coach actually takes courage. Why? Because it takes courage to challenge your client. It takes courage to be authentic. It takes courage to speak the truth and be and deal with them with integrity. And it takes courage to shake up some of their beliefs and systems and challenge them to find a new way of doing things or realize things. So if your coaching is not challenging, then think again. Are you doing coaching? It has to cost something. Okay, let me see what you have written. Who wrote? Whoops. Oh, no. Okay. So treat others how you want to be treated yourself. Very good. Catherine, Maggie, thank you for writing. Do unto others as you want them to do to you. Exactly. Like this principle is not, it's a universal law. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Now, many schools of thought subscribe to this concept. But it's funny, I did the research on the various schools of thought. I'm not gonna I did make a graph, but it'll take us on a different tangent, so I don't want to do that. But in a lot of those of the variety of schools of thought that exist in the world, this concept sounds very often as do not hurt others if you don't want to be hurt. Do not place greater burdens on the shoulders of others than you're willing to take. Do not, so there's a lot of do nots, do nots, do nots, okay? But it's interesting, however, to this is actually one of the very few, if not the only one, that actually puts the onus on the action rather than the avoidance of harmful action. So, and isn't that cool that actually the latest version, because that's the one that I read currently, but actually the 2025 Code of Ethics of ICF does emphasize exactly that. It emphasizes a do good philosophy rather than avoid wrongdoing. And it shifts the coach's attention toward being proactive with our client, proactive ethical decision-making, courageous conduct, like we just talked about, and a proactive system-wide impact and awareness. So proactivity is very important. Okay, somebody else who wrote me, let me see. Yes. Do unto others what you want them to do unto you. Very good. Okay. Oops, I don't want to leave the meeting. Next. So here is where it's actually stated in the ICF Code of Ethics on their website. It's in standard 5.3, which explicitly calls for this value-driven mindset. And I will give you now the actual link. I will give you the links to the ICF Code of Standards. So point 3 says to adhere to the philosophy of doing good versus avoiding bad, recognizing the impact of my professional this is part of the pledge, okay? So that's why it's written from first person singular. So recognizing the impact of my professional conduct on my clients, stakeholders, and the coaching profession and society in general. Now, why are we talking about ethics and why now? See, coaching is still a kind of a new and rapidly growing profession. And because of this, and because it's growing in popularity, and it's growing quite fast, it attracts a lot of people. And a lot of people want to take advantage of this great opportunity it offers. So it's important that all members, training accreditation organizations to ensure that the overall behavior will conform to these highest standards of ethics and integrity. So, okay, this reminds me of, have you heard about this story about this cowboy? A drunken cowboy goes into a bar and there's this preacher that preaches about heaven. And and he says, "Oh, preacher," he's drunken. He goes, "Oh, preacher, you're not saying it right. When you ask if they want to go to heaven, they all raise their hands that they want to go to heaven. I'll tell you what's to do." So he gets up on the stage next to the preacher, pulls out both of his guns, points at the crowd and says, "Now, who wants to go to heaven?" So at the gun, you make when the gun is pointed at you, you make very different decisions. So actually, understanding the full weight of the ethical behavior of a coach kind of raises the question, now, do you want to be a coach really? Or do you really do coaching now that you understand all that? That was my whole point. And the aim with it all is to encourage and stimulate the internal drive in each coach to establish their own personal standards of professionalism and integrity and accountability and responsible behavior. So now we're going to focus a little more specifically on these two organizations. Now, in the book, in the Noble Manhattan training course, in the handbook of the course, we actually list the ethical and the professional standards of 3 organizations: the International Authority of Professional Coaching and Mentoring, the International Coach Federation, and the European Coaching and Mentoring Council, the EMCC. EMCC, ICF, and IIPCNM are all 3 listed. Why? Well, because we want you to be prepared to get accredited no matter where you choose eventually to get accredited with. And also we want you to feel confident that, because we train a global community of coaches, and every one of you is positioned on a different continent, different country, and like I said, different organizations have different influence in different parts of the world. So at least giving you these 3 code of ethics written out in detail, as well as the professional code of behavior, we are hoping that you will feel secure, that you're thoroughly educated on what the universal requirements for ethical coaching are. All right. Now, but would it surprise you to know the do's and don'ts of all of these organizations are almost identical? They might be verbalized differently, but at the core, they lead towards the same principle, do no harm, or take proactive action to be good for your client and for society at large. So next, we're going to cover some of the do's and some of the don'ts that coincide. Like I said, they're verbalized differently, but actually not that differently. And they are organized I have organized them in 2 sections, the do's and the don'ts, into 5 paramount principles. And I'll explain in more detail what we mean. Okay, but now that we're entering into the more specific issues, please, while you're listening, reflect about your own coaching style. So this is your challenge for this part of the webinar. Think about your own coaching style and evaluate how does it align with these ethical standards. How does it need to be further aligned if necessary? Or maybe you don't need to further align them. Maybe it's just fine, but maybe you'll discover areas that may need a little bit of tweaking. We're all on a personal journey, even as coaches. So we covered in the beginning the 4 fundamental pillars of coaching, and now we're going to go into some of the fundamental ethical principles of coaching. Okay, so let's start with the do's. All right, so here are 5 points we're going to discuss. We'll touch on written agreements, client consent, confidentiality, professional development, and honesty about qualifications. So, written agreements, yes, it is a very good idea. It's part of ethics, actually, to have clearly written coaching agreements where you define the coaching relationship, you defined the principles of confidentiality, the roles in the coaching relationship, your fees upfront, also the responsibilities of both sides of the coaching relationship, and you lay it out before you even begin. Then also, if there are additional participants into this relationship, they also need to be clear on their role. Let's say If there's a sponsor or a manager or any third parties involved, this also needs to be clarified and written clearly. So confidentiality. Confidentiality is one of those fundamentals, because confidentiality has to do with trust. If you break the confidentiality, if you break the trust of your client, it's almost like it's very difficult, if impossible, to recover from it. So you need to maintain very strict confidentiality, and you need to be upfront about it. How are you going to achieve it? You need to, again, depending on which part of the world you live, you may have specific regulations or laws that you need to additionally adhere to, and to reassure your client that you are aware of these laws and that you will take them into account, such as the GDPR, for example. Or if you coach cross-continent, like maybe you're an American coach coaching somebody in Europe. Well, in Europe, we do have the GDPR. So you need to be aware of that. So these rules of how you're going to protect your clients' information, your clients, what they share with you, their issues, how you're going to protect your electronic files that you keep these things. These are all part of your ethical and professional behavior as a coach. Then respect of autonomy. So as we coach our clients, we also need to treat them respectfully, as capable people to find their own solutions. So part of us being an ethical coach is to avoid running our own agenda, okay? And we need to be non-directive, like we covered in the beginning. All right, then there is something about professional development and honesty about qualifications. Professional development is part of our responsibility as a coach. It's not enough to just, 10 years ago, I got trained, and then I stopped ever reading anything about coaching or attending any workshops or any master classes, or it doesn't work like this. Most organizations have a CPD hour requirements to maintain yearly, to maintain your proficiency as a coach. And as you renew your accreditation or credentialing with these organizations, you're required to prove these CPD hours. CPD stands for Continuous Professional Development. Now, honesty about qualifications. Well, besides just saying, well, I'm a qualified coach, for example. I mean, if you're good at coaching, you should have at least gotten some coach training. I mean, that's the basics, that's the fundamental. And it's astounding how often can be heard people to say, oh, but I'm a life coach, and they have no idea what coaching is like. Just because it's a modern buzzword doesn't mean that all of a sudden you suddenly became a qualified coach. Now, you may have experience in working with people, and that may give you some confidence that applying certain techniques that you have learned to be producing some good results in people that you talk to. But come on, if you're going to call yourself a coach, please be a coach, because there are other professions that for the uninitiated, if you want to call it, might sound like, oh, but it's all about coaching, oh, it's about psychology. No, they might sound, in some of the techniques, we may overlap, because ultimately we talk to human beings, right? So human states, human behavior and human psyche has principles that are covered by different professions, like psychotherapy or yes, psychology, even psychiatry or counseling and consulting and mentoring and some fundamentals of leadership, or even some other techniques that are accepted within some of the various schools of thought that exist. However, if we're going to be coaching, then we must at least have had the basics of coach training. Now, however, when we talk about qualifications, this is the place also to understand that we owe it to our client to be honest about what type of help we're going to provide. So look, if you are a trained therapist and you want to help your client with therapy, then come on, be the best therapist there is on the planet. Give them the top-notch support that you can. And don't call it coaching, okay? But then if you are a coach, then give them the best coaching support without slipping into the realm of other professions like therapy, for example, okay? Then some of the updates in the coaching standards of ICF have to do with the use of technology. So now that technology is so prevalent, they have added a very, I guess it will become even more and more important to be aware of it, a point about how to ethically use it in your coaching practice. Different AI and apps and tools. And again, it touches on how to protect client data and ensure their informed consent. Okay. And also how not to outsource some of your responsibility necessarily to machines. It's interesting to study that because the growing influence of AI does bring and open doors to some of these ethical moments, especially about delegating some of your responsibility as a coach to a machine and a electronic brain. Also, how to end coaching relationships ethically. Yes, a client has the right to decide not to be your client at any point, and they should know that. And you are also free to suggest to them alternative professionals that you feel might be a better fit. But ultimately, of course, it is the client's responsibility to make the choice and move forward with what they choose. Now let's cover some of the don'ts. And these are principles that are equally relevant for both organizations. Okay, which is why I'm covering them in this format. Like I said, please study each. I mean, depending on which one you are interested in applying for. So study the updates, and you will have to go through an additional process where you apply for the specific level of accreditation or credentialing that you are interested in achieving. So the don'ts. Yeah, one of them is don't guarantee results. Look, this is not within your control. Okay? See, outcomes and success has to do largely with the involvement of the client And this is part of ethics, to educate them the roles and where one ends and the other begins. But we cannot guarantee certain outcomes. So be ethical about what you can really promise. For example, oh, I'll help you double your income. How can you be sure 100%? And what happens if you don't? So there are certain things that are outside of your control. Don't coach without consent. That statement in the beginning, if you remember, somebody said, oh, but I coach my colleagues and I coach my clients all the time, and they don't even know it. I'm such a good coach. They don't even know that I'm coaching them. Well, one of the premises of coaching is don't coach without consent. If you are engaging in something that you might think is coaching, but it's without the other person's consent, then the question is, are you really doing coaching? Coaching implies consent. Okay, we already covered don't break confidentiality. Don't blur professional boundaries. We touched on that as well. Also, this is maybe here is a place to mention, don't try to diagnose or treat health or mental issues. They fall outside of the coaching scope. Now, you might be a therapist besides being a coach, okay? And that's great. So if you're a therapist, you need to tell them, and you need to also explain when you are engaging in therapy with them and when you're engaging in coaching. And that there's separate roles. And don't they actually have to agree to either? I mean, this thing about the client's consent, it is one of their fundamentals of being an autonomous human being. We have that right to choose and to consent or not consent. Okay. So there you go. Never coach somebody on the fly or in a manipulative way. Yeah, the thing about manipulation. Well, how do you know if you're manipulating somebody? Ultimately, it's about whose interest is the conversation serving, right? So if you're doing ethical coaching, it'll always be focused on the good and the benefit of the client. It's actually not very complicated. It's quite simple. I mean, love is the law. it combines everything about everything we're talking here. So if you love your clients, you will protect them from anything that can harm them. So about coaching, get explicit permission. Coaching is always voluntary. All right, so here we are. It boils down to some very basic values: integrity, honesty, transparency, excellence, care, professionalism, accountability. Both IAPCNM and ICF subscribe to these values. ICF code uses a more behavioral and rule-based structure. They're verbalized and written out in a different format. But these timeless values are emphasized by both organizations, and you will be maybe surprised or maybe pleasantly surprised to discover that the other coaching accreditation bodies I listed in the beginning also subscribe to these universal values that are common to the coaching industry. Here's the 3 things to aim for. The ethical code of the coaching profession aims to protect the client, maintain professional integrity, and ensure that coaching stays coaching. As long as you fulfill these 3, you will be fine. You will be ethical. Now, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it's for a purpose, because if you get this foundation, then the more complex sounding or complex looking situations actually can be resolved much more easily through this prism. Now, let's summarize. What is it that we should tell clients when we engage them? Yes, coaching is confidential and voluntary. Dear client, you can stop coaching with me at any time. And I, as a coach, follow internationally recognized codes of ethics. And I am accountable to the specific professional bodies for my behavior. Like, for example, with the International Authority of Professional Coaching and Mentoring, there are very clear rules about when you can report when some ethical or professional codes have been disrespected or disregarded. Also, IAPCNM is probably the only accreditation body that at least I'm aware of that is approved by the British Industry Ombudsman, and it's also registered with the American Ombudsman. So they have procedures about handling when the codes of ethics and professionalism are contradicted. Now, when you talk to your clients, what do we cover? Your client deserves to know that you are accountable, not just to them, but to something bigger, okay? So depending where you're accredited or credentialed, then you may want to refer to their to the organization's codes of ethics. Now, if you're trained by Noble Manhattan Coaching, we do have a written code of ethics of our coach training. And like I said, we make it a point to educate you as our students of at least 3 of the 9 different bodies that I listed, to give you a detailed perspective on what we're basing the code of ethics when we train you. So you should communicate this with your clients. They need to be secure that this is not just a coincidental conversation, but actually that you are aware of something bigger of the profession, and there are certain rules and ethics to be kept. And what you should tell them: that coaching is confidential, that yes, you follow internationally accepted codes, that they will not be manipulated, no outcomes will be forced upon them, and you will never betray their trust. That's what they want. And at the end, and they can end their relationship with you at any time. So should we include the codes of ethics in our agreements? Yes, but like I said, look, both organizations, IAPCNM and ICF, they're very big and huge, and pages upon pages of ethical codes. Now, your client probably won't read all of this, okay? So you printing it out for them probably won't do anything good, but you can summarize some of these basics, which I keep harping on, so that hopefully it's easier to remember. So stick to the basics, stick to the fundamentals, and if you like, you can say, well, I'm accredited with such and such an organization, and here is the link to the global standards that I adhere to. That should be probably enough. And when there are clearly communicated ethics, it's good for all parties, because then the ethics become a foundation for your relationship. It's not just for legal protection, but it's a foundation for the relationship. And we adhere to high ethical standards, but that will inspire our clients to also adhere to high personal standards of ethics. So here's your homework. Okay, so if you like, so you don't have to print 17 pages of code ethics, especially if you're accredited by more than one organization, then you'll be really a lot of paperwork there preparing and printing. So look, stick to 15 key points that you personally resonate the most. I mean, if I asked you right now, if you just pause, do you have any pens and papers and stuff? Okay, I'm giving you homework for 15, but right now, can you write your top 3? Can you write them down? Like the first thing that comes to your mind, you as a coach, what would be your top 3 codes of ethic? Code means they apply to every coaching conversation and to your behavior as a coach. What would be your top 3 ethical codes, rules? These can include statements regarding such as boundaries, standards, forbidden territories, personal and professional development. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I see some of your faces. So when you're done with your 3, you can look up so I can see you, yes, that you're done. And then, okay, so look at this list here. Boundaries, standards, forbidden territories, personal and professional development. The 3 top that you wrote, do they cover any of these listed? Boundaries, standards, forbidden territories, personal and professional development. So if they don't, which one of these you haven't covered yet as a person? So I'll give you another minute for you to think and write down what's missing. Do you have a statement that relates to the boundaries you adhere? We're talking about code of ethics and coaching standards. Do you have a statement that relates to forbidden territories? If you are challenged about how to word these statements, think of it as a pledge. And you can start it with, I pledge to, and fill in the blanks on that topic. I pledge to, and remember, we are looking for proactive action. So we're looking for, I pledge to do such and such for your benefit, right? Rather than, we're not looking for avoidance of hurt, we're looking for proactive action towards the client's benefit. So that's how you should structure it. I pledge to, for example, to take to take best psychological, emotional, and physical care of myself to be able to serve you best. See, like this is about personal development, let's say. I pledge to always take care of my mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being and physical health so I can serve you best. Or professional development. I pledge to stay cutting edge on my and current on the cutting edge development of my profession. Think, or for example, ethical standards on boundaries. I pledge to respect your values, your faith, and your personal space. I'm literally making it up as I go. So, but you get the point, right? I'm just curious. How many have you managed to write? 1, 2, 3? Can you give me a number? How many of these 15 points were you able to create right now? Who has written at least one? Very good. Who has written 3? Anybody with 3? No? Okay. 5. Oh, yes, I see somebody with 5. Wonderful. Maggie, well done. Thank you. Anybody more than 3? Sorry, more than 1, I meant. Besides Maggie. Petya. Petya, you have more than 1, yes? I can't hear you.
I'm working on the 3rd one, actually.
Okay. Yes, this is not a quick exercise. I'm just kind of trying to stir up a little bit your thinking so that you can do your homework afterwards, see? So we're doing part of your homework right now to get you started. So your homework is for 15 of these, yes? And they will include statements regarding boundaries, standards, forbidden territories, personal and professional development, etc. All right. So how Noble Manhattan teaches ethics?
Ben, you have
Sorry?
a question from Katrin.
Okay.
Could you expand on forbidden territories a bit, please?
Right. Okay. Well, forbidden territories, actually, maybe I can open it up to other people because I'm sure some of you have already even thought about it. Like, what do you understand by forbidden territories in this situation? What territory could be forbidden?
Talking
when you
about
coach?
religion, for example, maybe.
Maybe, yes. Yeah, of course. Engaging into therapy. Personal details, sexual
Intimacy.
inappropriateness.
Yeah.
Okay. So how would you fit these examples into the statement of forbidden territories? This, what you have written here. Whether it's religion or therapy or sexuality, confidentiality, all of this, how do you feel? What do you understand about it relating to forbidden territories? Any sensitive issues? Yes, very good. Yes, sensitive issues is a good alternative to forbidden territories. Yeah. Personal details, satisfy. Now, some of these territory, like the boundaries of these territories could be negotiated and clarified in your first coaching session with your client. When you engage in your client, you can actually have a conversation about that. What are the territory that you're going to talk about and how far you're going to go or not go? It also has to do there are things that also may relate to you personally, like where are you willing to, how far are you willing to go into some conversation, and where would you draw the line? Where would you draw the line? You know? Sensitive, asking about personal details. Yeah, maybe there are topics that you don't feel comfortable about. See, maybe there are certain values that you will not allow of your own to be broken. So it has to do with their boundaries and your. All right. I'm sorry, who asked the question? Okay. From join. Yeah, I don't see the chat. Excuse me, guys. I see now that you have written. All right. So I see a comment from Svetlina also asking about personal details to satisfy the coach's own curiosity. John, yeah, promising an outcome that will not be achievable to hook your client. Exactly. Very good. So I pledge to, that'll be interesting how to word it in a positive, proactive way. I will not promise what I can deliver. So you can exercise your brain later about this. I can't come up with it right now. All right. So okay, Petya. I pledge to maintain a partnership based on trust and confidentiality. Very well said. I pledge to respect our partnership based on non-judgmental principles of coaching relationship. Very good. I pledge to respect your preference of talking about sensitive issues. Yes, I am not, Cidelina says, I'm not discussing crimes, violence, destructive or negative solutions, exactly, to socioeconomic problems. Yeah, like, politics, religion, and sex are generally the three most explosive topics. So I would highly caution you to consider them part of, to have a clear ethical standard for yourself, how far you want to go or not go in these. They're explosive topics. And yeah. Okay. Now, this thing about crimes, actually, there are ethical challenges that maybe I can just pull out from the course. But see, about crime, and we don't talk about confidentiality, but we actually list a few ethical challenges that you may encounter, because, okay, you want to be confidential, right, with your clients. Well, what if he wants to kill their neighbor? Are you going to be confidential about this? What do you think is going to happen there? Or you're, okay, I'm hoping I'm picking an extreme, never to be encountered issue, but the world is full of surprises sometimes. Anyway, let's say you have a conversation and you discover that there will be some criminal activity going on all of a sudden with your dear client. And what do you do? How do you handle that? That's part of your ethical code. Are there times, for example, part of those 15 things, when would you break confidentiality? Would you ever break the confidentiality? Are you waiting for me to give an answer?
I think I will comment, just voice it instead of comment it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, in writing. So certainly there should be a clause, and depends on where the coach is operating, in which country. If the client shares that they have committed a crime that is prosecutable, And if you don't break the confidentiality clause between you two, but actually you become, it's like you're assisting them to cover a crime, you know? And this is really important legally if your client has been involved in a prosecution case and if you're legally connected to them as a coach and you've been made aware through the investigation that you know, you understand the crime they committed, but you haven't shared it with the authorities. So we should really think about how we approach such situations and to inform the client of the expectations of whether they share about them committing a crime, that we are legally, you know, abiding to the law to disclose that.
Exactly. So you need to communicate this, and you have to also be aware of what you want to do. Remember, we're actually not lawyers. You know, maybe a lawyer is bound by client confidentiality. I don't actually know the laws about that, but I have watched many movies on the subject about laws, the lawyer. Anyway, but it's not the same with us. Ultimately, we want to serve the benefit of the client, but also the benefit of the society at large. You know, we want to be a force for good to the society at large. So if there's something that is potentially harming either a client, harming other people, these are definitely things that you need to be very clear where you know, where do you draw the line? And actually put it out there in your coaching agreement so that they don't say later, oh, but you broke my confidentiality. Well, yeah, your neighbor is in danger. I'm definitely breaking your confidentiality, you know, things like this. So you have to be aware. For example, and there's other things. Actually, every month I teach a masterclass, coaching masterclass that we take an hour within the class to discuss ethical issues, and we go through various things. For example, issues that come up, you know, besides the ones that everybody can bring to the table. Some of the already written issues in the handbook have to do with, let's say, can you coach somebody that you have an affair with at the workplace? Or can you coach somebody who is going for therapy? How do you coach a child? What age is a child? Does anybody else need to be present there? Oh, somebody wrote, I remember, one of the questions I remember was, can I coach financial issues or something along the lines? Well, very good question, because we're talking here about two professions now. One is coaching and one is financial advising, you know? And so if you have hats that go for two different professions, then you need to be aware that the different professions will bind you to different coaching ethics, different professional ethics. So are you qualified to give financial advice? Are you qualified as a coach? Are you actually going to coach on a financial issue? Or are you going to be doing financial advising and call it coaching? See, these are all ethical nuances there. So can you coach on financial issues? Answer is yes. However, that opens up the conversation further, right? Because are you qualified as a financial specialist? Same applies to, you know, working with children. Yes, you can coach anything that breathes, technically, as a coach. But when you work with a child at various ages, well, do you have the qualifications that makes you capable of understanding the age bracket and the challenges they face at that age? Coaching a 7-year-old is very different than coaching a 17-year-old or a 27-year-old, okay? And so these nuances are covered additionally by additional qualifications relating to working with young people or children. Okay, so these are nuances of the profession. So sometimes when you say, well, I want to coach, financial issues, let's say, well, are we talking about pure coaching, or are you talking about mixing two hats? And if you're mixing two hats, then do you have the qualifications and understanding of the professional ethics that go to both? All right, so let's see, how are you doing with the reflection of the challenge of the day, which was evaluate the type of coaching that you're doing? Are you doing okay? You're doing good coaching? Yes? Clean ontological coaching based on values and not mixing it with anything else? Hope so. Okay. Yes, so that was the point. Like, please, we posted in the chat the links of the ICF and International Authority of Professional Coaching and Mentoring. Study it further. One thing that maybe stood out to you, like you were watching and it's like, oh yeah, look at that. That was interesting. Oh, thank you, Petya. She wrote in the chat, focus is on the client. Coaching is not therapy. That's okay. Thank you, Yana. Changing the message from do no harm to do good. Very good. Coaching is mad. Yes, makes a difference. Svetelina wrote, one takeaway I have from today is stick to your ethical values, as these are part of the foundation to a great coaching career. Well said. Coaching is a lifelong co-coaching effort. Yeah, coaching is coaching, exactly. So if you do coaching, do coaching. Wonderful. All right, thank you. Enjoy your evening or morning, depending on which part of the world you are.